No one wants to imagine it, yet every military planner has to. What would happen if the world's two most powerful nations, the United States and China, went to war? It would not be a repeat of the past century's great conflicts. There would be no mass land invasions across continents, no clear front lines stretching for hundreds of miles. This would be a war of sensors, signals, satellites, and precision, a contest not just of weapons, but of endurance, coordination, and adaptation. The story begins long before the first shot. For decades, both sides have studied each other's strengths, weaknesses, and doctrines. China's military expansion, its modernization of the Navy, Air Force, and missile systems, has been aimed primarily at one goal: preventing foreign intervention near its coastline and surrounding seas. The United States, meanwhile, has invested in technologies that allow it to project power across oceans, relying on alliances, logistics, and speed. If these two doctrines collided, it would not be a single battle. It would be a system versus system confrontation. The geography of tension. At the center of any US-China war scenario is geography. The Pacific Ocean is vast, but the likely theater of conflict is far narrower, a chain of islands stretching from Japan and Taiwan to the Philippines and beyond. Military analysts call it the first island chain, and it acts as both a shield and a barrier. For China, breaking through it would be essential to secure access to the wider Pacific. For the US and its regional partners, holding that line would be key to containment and deterrence. The challenge is that distance works in opposite ways for each side. China's proximity to the potential battlefield gives it speed, shorter supply lines, and overwhelming missile coverage. The United States, though distant, benefits from a global network of bases, unmatched logistics, and control of the open seas. Neither side would have the luxury of a surprise. Satellites, drones, and cyber reconnaissance would see the buildup long before any engagement began. The first phase: a war of eyes and ears. Modern war starts in the invisible domain: space, cyber, and electromagnetic spectrum. Before a single aircraft takes off, both sides would likely target each other's satellites, command networks, and sensors. In this early phase, blinding the opponent could matter more than striking them. A successful disruption of GPS or data links could paralyze precision weapons and delay decisions. Both nations have been preparing for this kind of contest for years. China has demonstrated anti-satellite missiles and electronic jamming systems designed to interfere with communications. The US, on the other hand, has invested in satellite resilience, low-orbit constellations, and cyber defense networks capable of rerouting information even under attack. It would be a chess match in orbit and cyberspace, one that determines who can see, who can talk, and who can act first. The side that preserves its digital nervous system will control the tempo of everything that follows. The second phase: the battle for the sea and sky. If communication holds and escalation continues, the next phase would unfold across the Western Pacific. Here, the balance between China's land-based missiles and America's carrier strike groups becomes crucial. China's strategy, often described as anti-access area denial, A2/AD, relies on dense layers of long-range missiles, radar coverage, and submarines positioned to deter US forces from approaching too close. Its inventory of ballistic and cruise missiles could threaten ships and bases as far away as Guam, creating a lethal zone for large surface vessels. The US, meanwhile, would rely on a combination of stealth, standoff weapons, and joint operations with allies to counter this threat. Its latest generation of submarines, stealth bombers, and unmanned aerial systems are designed to operate even in heavily contested environments. The first major test would likely be at sea. China's rapidly growing navy, the People's Liberation Army Navy, PLAN, now has the world's largest number of ships, but size doesn't equal reach. Many of its vessels are optimized for regional operations near home waters, protected by missile coverage. The U.S. Navy, while smaller in count, possesses unmatched global experience, nuclear-powered carriers, and long-range maritime patrol capabilities. In open ocean warfare, logistics and coordination would matter more than sheer numbers. Both sides would also have to confront a new dimension of naval warfare: unmanned systems. Autonomous underwater drones, sea gliders, and AI-driven reconnaissance vessels could provide real-time intelligence and conduct high-risk missions without endangering crews. The future naval battlefield would be crowded, not just with ships and submarines, but with swarms of machines gathering and transmitting data faster than human reaction. The air domain: speed, stealth, and survival. In the skies above, stealth and long-range engagement would dominate. China's fifth-generation fighters, such as the J-20, are designed to intercept aircraft and assert control near its coastline. The U.S. would deploy its F-22 and F-35 fleets, supported by refueling aircraft and advanced radar aircraft. Air battles would not resemble the dogfights of old. They would begin and end beyond visual range, with missiles guided by complex electronic warfare and countermeasures. Long-range bombers such as the B-2 and B-21 would play a decisive role, launching precision strikes from safe distances. Their targets would not just be air bases or ships, but infrastructure, radar stations, missile silos, logistics hubs. Every destroyed node would slow the opponent's ability to sense and respond. Yet air superiority would not be permanent. Both sides possess dense integrated air defense systems. Even stealth aircraft would need to operate carefully, relying on electronic deception and coordinated timing. Attrition, the slow wear-down of aircraft, fuel, and pilots, would replace the quick victories of past wars. The ground game, limited but critical. Unlike traditional wars, ground combat between the US and China would likely be localized: islands, runways, and logistical points rather than massive front lines. In such confined spaces, mobility and sustainment would determine success. Small detachments of Marines, special operations units, and paratroopers could clash over airfields or ports that serve as refueling or sensor outposts. In this environment, amphibious capability becomes a major factor. China's expanding fleet of landing ships and marines is built for regional dominance, particularly in scenarios around Taiwan or disputed islands. The U.S. Marine Corps, in contrast, has evolved toward lighter, distributed units, able to move quickly, set up temporary missile launch points, and relocate before being targeted. This literal warfare concept mirrors a game of hide and strike, rather than hold and defend. Logistics, the hidden war. Every battle depends on what happens hundreds or thousands of miles away. Fuel, spare parts, ammunition, and food, the unglamorous elements of war, become the lifeline of operations. In a conflict across the Pacific, logistics would decide endurance. China's advantage is its proximity: short supply lines, easier resupply, and infrastructure concentrated near potential conflict zones. The U.S., on the other hand, relies on a web of global bases and maritime supply chains that are highly efficient but vulnerable. Submarine warfare, cyber sabotage, and long-range missile strikes could disrupt these routes, forcing both sides to adapt rapidly. To offset distance, the U.S. has invested in pre-positioned stockpiles, undersea storage, and automated logistics systems that reduce the need for constant transport. For China, civilian infrastructure, ports, railways, and commercial vessels could be mobilized to sustain military operations at scale. The side that protects its supply lines while disrupting the others will hold the strategic upper hand. The role of allies and partnerships. No war of this scale exists in isolation. Both nations have networks of partners whose decisions would shape the outcome. The United States maintains defense ties across the Indo-Pacific, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and the Philippines, along with growing coordination through frameworks like the Quad. China, while more regionally focused, benefits from significant economic and technological partnerships that could indirectly support its logistics and production. In a crisis, intelligence sharing and base access from allied nations could give the U.S. critical operational depth. For China, regional geography and anti-access systems would serve as natural deterrents. This dynamic, one side projecting power outward, the other defending inward, would create a tense equilibrium where neither can claim quick dominance. The economic and industrial front. Modern war is as much about production as it is about firepower. Both nations possess enormous industrial capacities, but their economies are deeply interconnected. A prolonged conflict would disrupt trade, supply chains, and technology flows worldwide. The first weeks of fighting could trigger a global economic shock, impacting manufacturing, energy, and digital markets. Internally, sustaining war production would be a question of resilience. The U.S. defense industry, though advanced, is complex and globally sourced. China's manufacturing scale offers volume, but would face challenges under sanctions and blockades. Each side would attempt to outlast the other through adaptation, shifting factories, securing resources, and relying on automation to maintain tempo. The long game. Adaptation and fatigue. A US-China conflict would not produce quick winners. Both militaries are too capable, too networked, and too technologically advanced for decisive victory through force alone. Instead, the war would likely evolve into a contest of learning curves: who adapts faster, who restores networks quicker, and who maintains morale under constant strain. Analysts often point out that wars between great powers are rarely won on the battlefield alone. They are won through endurance, alliances, and the ability to adjust systems under stress. In that sense, the outcome no one expects might not be a dramatic military collapse, but a prolonged stalemate, a conflict paused by exhaustion rather than concluded by triumph. In such a scenario, negotiation and deterrence would re-emerge as tools to prevent escalation beyond control. Neither side benefits from a war that damages global stability. What truly decides the future is not who strikes first, but who prevents the next strike from ever being necessary. Final reflection. If the US and China ever went to war, it would not resemble anything the world has seen before. It would be fought across domains: digital, orbital, aerial, and maritime, each influencing the other in real time. It would test not only machines, but the institutions, logistics, and leadership behind them. The true lesson of such a confrontation is that preparation and understanding remain the most powerful deterrents. Wars are rarely about who has the most weapons. They are about who understands the cost of using them, and who chooses restraint before history repeats itself.